Hi, my name is Marie from Underground Crafter, and this is how to find what you've organized, checklists, apps, and more. So a little bit about me. I've always lived in an apartment of one size or another throughout my adult life, and I usually have crafting spaces that are pretty small, and they're not only for crafting. So I've had to use a couple of different tools and tricks to keep organized with what supplies I have, where they're located, and all of those good things. So today I'm going to share some of that with you. I'm going to share some different offline paper-based methods for keeping track of your stash and your supplies and all the stuff that you've organized already. And I'm also going to share some online tools and apps that you can use. So just before we even get started, why might you choose paper-based versus an online tool? So a lot of us that are crafters, we're very tactile. We like to do things with our hands. And especially if you like calligraphy, drawing, watercolor, you may want to create some kind of book that you can use to, track your supplies, that's beautiful looking, that really expresses your personality. And so you might want to use something offline that you can get really creative with. On the other hand, for a person like me, the main way that I try to organize what I have is what I would call the consumables. So those are the things like fabric, yarn, paint, markers, the stuff that I might need to get more of, and I might need to match something with something I have at home. So it's really helpful to be able to access that while I'm away from home. So for that reason, I really like some of the online tools because I could be right in the store and I can look and see, does this fabric that I'm looking at really go with that fabric that I think I have at home? And so that's the benefit of the online tools. But really you can use both or either or neither. And the truth is that they're also only as good as you keeping them up to date. So as soon as you don't update them, then they're just not very functional. So it is an ongoing thing that you'll have to do. So let's talk about some paper-based tools. So one tool that you can use is similar to bullet journaling. So I don't know how many people have made a bullet journal before, but basically you can take any pre-made journal that already exists, and what you want to do is you build out sections, and you don't need to always have the pages in the same order. So it's great for expanding. So for instance, let's say the first page you started with listing all of your yarn that you have, and then you didn't do any yarn crafts for a long time, and the next bunch of pages is your watercolor supplies, but then you got really back into yarn and you needed more pages. That's fine, because the way you organize it is through a series of dots that you would put in the top right hand corner. So basically what you would do is, let's say the first section is your yarn supplies. You would put a big dot up here, dark enough so that it can be seen on the side binding. And anytime you do another page, wherever it falls in the book, you're going to put that same dot in that same location. And so that way, when you have the book closed, you'll see the dots kind of lining up to where different things belong. So what's nice about this method is, for those of you that like to draw, like to do lettering, like to decorate stuff, this is a really fun method because you can really customize it and make it look lovely and beautiful. And also you can kind of expand it. So if you started where you had a lot of supplies in one area, you can, and you need to add more later, you just have to put that dot. You can also use a similar idea where you just take those Post-it notes, or those little thin Post-it notes. They come usually like in strips of 4, and you can just put those, again, same thing, on the outer right edge of the paper, and that kind of gives you an organization, so you'll know what type of craft material it is. So that's one approach. Another approach is to use something that's expandable. I like these disc tool planners. They're sometimes called ARC tools, ARC. And basically what they do is they allow you to easily take papers in and out and add them back in or change the positioning of those papers. Similar to a loose leaf binder or a 3-ring binder you might have had as a kid, but the pages don't tend to tear as much. It's a little bit thicker paper, and they come in a lot of different sizes, and they're interchangeable. So any size smaller than this, the paper can also fit into here, which is nice. And so those kind of planner books, they sell tabs. So the same kind of thing, you can organize it based on tabs. Let's say the front tab could be all of your crafting machines. So it might be, you know, the names of your sewing machines, your Cricut machine, your embroidery machine, whatever machines that you have that are craft related. And if you have some in storage, let's say, you can also list where they're located. And then you can, you know, have different tabs for different things. And I should actually take a step back. When you're thinking about, before you get started with any paper-based system, what is the organizing unit? So for those of you that have a lot of crafting space, the unit might be the location, right? So you might be thinking, well, what do I have in the basement, for example? And that might be its own tab and all the materials that are in the basement, or it could be its own dot, right, in the bullet journal. But if you are organizing by type, right, you might have a list of all, let's say, your fabric, and then next to the type of fabric, you might list the location. So think about that as you set up these different organization systems. What I like to say is there's no right way, but it helps to know your own brain and how you think, because you'll want to organize it in a way that you'll be able to find things later. So if you think by room, if you think by color, if you think by craft, that's what you should have in your mind as you set up these different tools. So with the paper-based system, I find they look a lot nicer. They're fun to kind of use for daydreaming and project ideas, but there's a downside, which is they don't necessarily have pictures of everything in your collection. And so sometimes it's tough to visualize, and that's where some of the online tools come into play. So before we talk about the online tools, I want to touch briefly on taking pictures, because that's probably going to be a big part of how you use the online organizational tools. So one of my favorite tools for organizing my stash, believe it or not, is just a plain white canvas board. So you can get these at most craft supply stores. The one that I have that I use the most is 11 by 18 inches. And why do I use it? Well, it makes it really easy to take pictures of anything in my craft stash. So when I'm organizing it online, I can have a picture of it. And why I use this versus something else? Well, first of all, anyone can clear off an 11 by 18 space anywhere in their home. So whether you have a small apartment, a big house, you have kids, you have pets, you can clear off a space this big to put this on. And if you can't, you can stack it on top of whatever mess that you have there. Because it's white, it helps with what's called the white balance in your camera. When your camera has a white balance that's correct, it shows a truer version of the colors that you're taking pictures of. So for instance, let's say I take this piece of fabric and I take a picture of it against this white. When I'm looking at the picture, if this board doesn't appear white to me, I can tell that the color probably isn't true. And there's a lot of tools online that you can use to edit photos now. And if you know, one of the ways you can do the editing is to adjust the white balance so that white canvas piece looks white. Then you know that the color of the fabric, the yarn, the paint, the marker that you have in the picture is probably more true. So that is a great thing to do if you're taking pictures of specific things that you might want to match up later to other tools. So now I'm going to talk about some online tools. And the first one I'm going to talk about is called Ravelry. It's a social network that has a pattern marketplace and a stash organizer that is specifically for folks who love yarn. Okay, so I'm going to share how you can use the Ravelry Stash feature to organize your yarn supplies. So if you don't already have a username, you're going to go through the sign up process and it will send you a link and it will walk you through that process. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to sign in. So when you sign in, you'll have this homepage which will share sort of the latest news from Ravelry's blog. And at the top, you can search through the pattern database. You can look at the yarn database, which is not your personal yarns. It's all the yarns that yarn companies have listed, which is really helpful. The community has forums and things you can chat and so on, which are fun. And then there's support. But we're not going to focus on any of that. We're going to go to this right side, and you'll see there's something here that's called My Notebook. And in My Notebook, there's two features I want to share, which is Stash and Tools, but we'll start with Stash. So you can see that I actually have a lot in my stash already, but basically the way it works is you click on Add to Stash on the left, and you can, if you want, include where you got the yarn. This is actually helpful sometimes if you are looking for a specific dye lot. And you include the name of the yarn, meaning the specific line of yarn, as well as the yarn company name. And then you click on continue. So I'm just going to choose at random a type of yarn that I've used before. Well, actually, so the name is 220 and the yarn company is Cascade Yarns. And you see it kind of pops up already. And I just don't want to enter the shop information. So I just said other, and I'm going to click on continue. And if it's an existing yarn, you can just choose this yarn. And then you can enter the colorway, and some of them will be entered. And these drop downs are specific to this yarn, what other users have listed. So it will change depending on what yarn you've selected. Alternatively, like a lot of us might have yarn without a ball band in our closet, you can also pick closest color, right? So you just say it's that orange yarn. And if you don't know the name of the brand, you can also be, silly or fun and just say unnamed wool or something like that, or old yarn from the flea market, right? Or whatever you want to call it. And then the color. Um, if it's already a yarn, so I had started with Cascade 220, I'm going to just do that again. It will already know things like how much weight there is in the yarn, how many yards, and the thickness of the yarn. But if you enter something in that is not an existing yarn brand, you'll create that yourself. And then you can list how many skeins you have of that particular color of that yarn. If you want, you can say where you purchased it. And again, this is something where if you start listing something and then you search, if it's a big enough place, it'll probably be listed and then you can just choose it. You can also list the purchase date if you'd like. And there's also options like February, I don't know the exact day, for example. And you can go back quite a ways if you have old stuff you want to include. And you can put the total paid. This is helpful sometimes because it might give you an idea of, for example, if you're gifting, if you think you're going to use that yarn for a specific project. You could also enter the dye lot. You can tag it. So tags are just the way you want to organize it, and you can also list where it's stored in. So for example, you could put top left shelf of bookcase, right? And you would be able to look at all the projects you have stored in that particular location. You can put notes. Here I often put if I got the yarn while I was traveling or at a special festival or something. And then you're going to save it. if you have the same yarn, like let's say you have 5 different colors of this yarn, you just want to click on Stash More and it will bring up all this existing information about the yarn, and then you're just adding the colors. Um, you can add photos here. So you can either upload from your computer, share a link from Instagram. If you have a Google Photos or Flickr account, you can do that. Also, let's say you don't have your own photo of it, you can slurp the photo from the website of that particular yarn company and upload from URL, and that'll also help you to remember what it looks like. And then for folks who use the other features in Ravelry, you can begin a project here, save it in your favorites, and so on. So I'm just going to go back to my stash for a minute to show folks how things look. So for example, I'm going to take, let's see, I'm going to take Big Twist value because I have a lot of different colors here. You can see that they're all linked up on the side as well as how much is left. So let's say I was in the store and I was looking to make something that might match with this sky blue that I have. It's helpful to know that I have just one skein, so if it's a bigger project, I might need to pick up more. And if I wanted to look at it and compare to the yarn that I'm getting, I have my photo there, so that's going to help me to understand, how it compares up. So that's the stash feature. There's also a tools feature. It's in that same My Notebook menu. And here you can list knitting needles, so double pointed or circular or straight by size, and hooks. And you can indicate how many you have. So you can add if you have 3, if you have 5, etc. And they have a detailed inventory at the end that you can see once you've filled in on these charts. It'll show up and it'll give you the entire chart view. As you can tell, this isn't a feature that I'm currently using, but it's really helpful for people that don't know what sizes they have, or especially when you're starting the craft for the first time and you don't have every size. I have, doubles and triples probably of every size, so I don't need this. But if you are the first time knitting and you're not sure, hey, do I need a size 6? 16-inch circular needle, this will help you know. So that's another feature. And again, you just tap on the screen and then you can add the type that you have and then close and it will save here. So the next app we're going to look at is Stash Hub, and it's available for iOS and Google Play. Okay, so you're going to start by downloading the Stash Hub app from the Apple or the App Store or the Google Play Store. And then you will go through all these different steps to get started. So you can start by creating an account if you don't already have one. And you can set up some preferred formatting issues here. So we're going to start with the free plan. And the nice thing about the app is that as you click on various parts of it, it tells you how to use them. So it's really helpful. Okay, so I'm going to add new and using this button in the right lower right corner. Okay, so I've picked that particular photo and now I'm going to add it. So then I can write the details about this fabric. So this is Grogu comic strip fabric. That's just what I'm calling it. I don't know the real name. So I just want to show you all the categories. You can write text in the description, but there's all this information that's already there. So if it's yardage, you can put the length, but if it's a pre-cut, you can choose if it's a fat quarter, fat eighth, and so on. So, and then the quantity. So whether this particular piece is a quarter yard and I haven't used it. I don't usually use the width feature, but that's something you can do. Again, if you want to list the price that you paid, you can. And the type is, I'm going to say quilting cotton, and it's 100% cotton, which I already know. I'm not going to use all these details because this isn't relevant for me, but for some folks using garment fabrics, you might want to include this detail. Again, you can choose a purchase date if they don't have the option to choose any date. So I would just make it the date that I'm entering it. If you want to have a specific shop, you can. If you have a thread match, you can include that. And you can also do tags as well as indicate if it's pre-washed, which is really helpful for fabric that might be sitting around and you're not sure if it's been pre-washed and shrunk. You can link to something. So if the fabric is already available online, let's say, you can also link to that, like this to the shop, which might have more details. You can say if it's gifted or not, and you can indicate the location. So for me, it's in the Star Wars fabric bin. Yes, I have one. So you can let that information be known, and then that way later you can find them. Now, here you can also create a new project, just like with Ravelry. So once you have all your different locations entered for your different fabrics, you can also see how many fabrics you have in each one, which is great. You can also list your patterns here and your notions for quite a different broad range. So bias binding, buttons, elastic, labels, thread, and zips, and then, or zippers as we usually call them in the US. And then there's some other categories that you can add. And so this is really helpful for kind of all of your sewing supplies. So the third way that I would suggest using an online system, and this is especially for folks who don't have exclusively sewing and yarn related supplies, is Pinterest. So if you don't have an account, of course, you're going to create one by signing up. I do have an account, so I'm going to log in. Okay, so if you go on Pinterest to your saved boards, on the right side, there's this plus button, and you're going to add a board. And you want to click on keep this board secret, unless you want other people to see it, but most likely you don't. So you might call this craft supplies in basement, for example. And then you're going to click create. Now you're going to skip all of these other ones to add because you're not trying to add any stuff like that. And then you're going to click this plus sign to create a pin or to add a section. So I'm just picking this at random. It could really be any supply you have pictures of. And of course, if you don't have a picture, you can use, again, like I suggested before, your online picture. So in this case, I'm going to call this Bernat Blanket Big. That's the name of the yarn. I can put a link. I can put it on Craft Supplies in Basement, which is already where I have it. I can tag it if I want. It's not something people will see, so that's for your own organization. And so maybe I'll tag it yarn, for example. And then I'm going to publish. Okay. So it's going to show up there. I can also choose this option of save from URL. Let's say I already had the URL. I could also just copy this and save from URL, right? So I can put this and it will automatically bring up some pictures for me. And then I can choose this picture to add it. And same thing, I can put the name of whatever it is. I can also make comments because remember, this is completely private. So I can say, actually, which is the truth, make a cat blanket with this and other skeins of Bernat Blanket Big if you want, right? So I can give myself little notes. And the fun thing about that is that sometimes I will discover that, what I had thought I was going to use it for way back when, right?
Okay, and then when I go here, I have these two pins. I can also click on organize and I can make sections right here, sections. So again, as you think about how you want to order things, do you want the sections to be the type of material, for example, yarn? Do you want the sections to be the location? So this could be all my craft supplies could be on this one board. And then I could create sections for the different storage spaces. So basement, bookshelf in the living room, whatever the case is. For those of you that have a dedicated craft room, it could be, bookshelf one, bookshelf two. You could also order by color, whatever system that makes sense to you. You can create sections and then you can drop all your pins into those sections to keep it organized. And then you can still have access to Pinterest from your phone or another mobile device while you're away from home.
So I hope you found these organizing tools helpful. I know that for me, I use a combination. I use Ravelry probably the most for my yarn, of course, because it's already designed for that purpose and I can access it online when I'm away from home, and I can also use it at home. But I truthfully love using some of the hand lists and hand-drawn things and making sketches and all of that. So I do have some paper-based tools as well. What I would suggest is really try out different methods and see what works for you, because in my experience, the key to organizing is using tools that you're comfortable with and that you can use consistently, because otherwise everything gets out of date really quickly. I'd also like to invite you to sign up for my newsletter. For folks that sign up for my newsletter, I do provide a coupon code to my shop on Ravelry that can be used for any crochet or knitting pattern or ebook for free. And I do have a 75% off coupon that my subscribers can use anytime throughout the year. I also have a subscriber vault that has some exclusive free crochet and knitting patterns, and also actually coupon codes from a lot of different independent designers and other craft supplies that you can use. So I hope to see you around on Underground Crafter. If you have any questions about how to find what you've organized, please feel free to ask them. Have a wonderful day.